Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and welcome to my end of the year awards videos. I will be doing 4 of these all throughout the month of December to celebrate the year of 2022 and the shows that I liked and didn't like so much in this past year. I can't believe we've already made it to the end of 2022. It seems like I just recorded these for 2021 just the other day. So I will be doing 4 videos. This one that you are watching right now will be me stating my most overrated show of the year. That is in my opinion. And then in the coming weeks, I will be doing my most underrated show of the year, the worst show of the year in my opinion, and then my top 10 best shows of 2022. So we'll start with the overrated show of the year. There was some stiff competition this year. Like, there was a lot of shows that I personally thought was a bit overrated. Last year's overrated show, just as a review for 2021, was Invincible Season 1. This aired on Amazon Prime. Every YouTuber, every reviewer, everyone I saw, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, everybody's like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I was like, it's okay. I haven't heard anything about Invincible Season 2, but I have no intention of watching it, so it doesn't matter. So now I'm going to do something different than I did last year, though. I'm going to do some runners-ups or runners-up honorable mentions, because there are so many shows that I think are a little bit overrated this year. So I'm going to do 3 quick honorable mentions, runners-up for the most overrated show of the year. And all 3 of these are shows that I have done reviews for on my channel. So if you want more information, you can go on my channel and you can watch my original reviews for each of these 3 shows. The first 2 can be found in my miscellaneous reviews category, and the third one, well, it'll be obvious which category that is on my homepage. Once I get to it, you'll see what franchise it's in, and you'll be able to find that on my homepage. So first one, really quickly, is Euphoria Season 2. I have heard a lot of people say that they love this season, that it was better than Season 1. I think the opposite. I think this was a huge disappointment after Season 1. Other than Rue and Fesco, I think they really dropped the ball on a lot of the characters. And what really hurts me the most is Jules, my favorite character. Jules, of course, the trans character, is relegated to a supporting character who does not have her own story to tell in this season. So I think that Season 2 of Euphoria is pretty overrated. Next one is Stranger Things 4, or Stranger Things Season 4, as I prefer to call it. This is interesting because this is simultaneously my favorite season of Stranger Things, but also it's still overrated, because while I gave it an 8 out of 10, everyone else was saying this is the greatest season in the history of television and other just ridiculous hyperbole like that. And it's not. Stranger Things has always been and will continue to be an overrated show. Even though this is my favorite season of the show, I still think it's overrated. And the last runner-up, I've already talked about this show twice within the last couple weeks on my channel, including the review that I did for it a couple weeks ago that you should definitely check out, and that is Star Wars Andor. So I think there's a lot of good things in this show. I agree with a lot of the positive things that have been said about the show, but I don't think it's the best Star Wars show ever. I don't think it's anywhere close to the best project in Star Wars since the original trilogy, which I have heard more than one person say. I don't even think it's the best Star Wars show of 2022. Never mind the best Star Wars show of all time. I just think it's way hyped up, and it gets way more credit than it deserves, in my opinion. I enjoyed it. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, a solid rating. I just don't think it's the best thing ever, as a lot of others do. Okay, so those are my runners up. If that hasn't rubbed you the wrong way, wait until you see what my winner for my most overrated show of the year is, because I really feel on an island with this one. I do feel like I'm the only one who feels as strongly against this particular season of television as I do. I have heard not only people saying this is one of the best seasons of the year, but a lot of people saying that this is the best season of this particular show. And not only do I not think that this was a good season of this show, but it has retroactively made me think less of the previous seasons of this show. I'm starting to realize maybe this show isn't as good as I might have thought it was, even though everyone else is still saying this is one of the greatest shows on television. And I couldn't disagree more. And so be ready, because you're likely to disagree with me on this, because most people do. So here it is, my most overrated show of 2022 is The Boys, Season 3. Yes, that must be shocking to you, because I'm sure if you're like everyone else, you think this was an amazing season of television. This was the best season of The Boys, and The Boys is a great show. I look at it and say, I don't get it. I feel like people are just being mesmerized, like hypnotized into liking a show that to me looks like a show that is just spinning its wheels. The story and the characters, both which I see as interrelated, are spinning its wheels. The show has not advanced since the beginning of season 1, and the characters have shown very little, if any, growth. And it's also a show that over relies on shock value. And what does a show do when it doesn't have a story to tell? It relies on shock value, because it doesn't have a story to tell. And I am just not getting why people think that this is so great. And it retroactively has made me think less of the first 2 seasons. And I will tell you right now that I have no intention of watching season 4. I am done with this show. Now, if I haven't scared you off, let me go ahead and get into a little more detail about why I think this show is overrated. But I'll start with the positives. I like to start with the positives first. I don't think this was a total disaster. There are a few things that I liked about the show, so I'll start there, and then I'm going to get more into mainly those 2 things that I was saying: the shock value and the character and story that are just like spinning its wheels. All right, so starting with the positives, I love the political message. I love that they're just blatant about it. I love that it's pissing off the right wing, as it should. And I love that they don't give a shit about it. That is my favorite aspect of this show. Jesse Ginger, one of my favorite YouTubers, did a video several months ago about the politics and why it's pissing off the right wing. And I actually agreed with almost everything she said in that video. But she overall is way more positive on the show than I am, but as everyone else is. But I agreed with the political takes on this show. I think that probably is the strength of the show, and that's why it's not going to get a 1 or a 2 rating when I get to the end. I will tell you what the rating is out of 10 when I get to the end of this video, but it's not going to be like the worst, I think, because of the politics. I do still love that. That's about it. So I want to start with the shock value of it all. So there's the exploding heads that started at the end of season 3. I'm sure that that's a lot of fun for the effects people. I'm sure they get a kick out of making people's heads explode. I'm sure that's fun for them. That's fine, but it's just a lot of it. It happens all the time. Like, heads just explode all the time, and it just really feels like, oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! The head is exploding! Isn't that cool? Ooh, oh my god, heads are exploding! Ooh. And people react that way. Like, people react like, ooh, isn't that cool? Like, all this, and these are like intelligent people that I respect and admire, and still respect and admire, and think are very intelligent. A lot of the people I know in person, and YouTubers, and just people in general, who just turn into Beavis and Butthead with this stuff, and I don't get it. But The heads exploding is the least of it. I think the worst scene in the history of television is the butt scene. And if you know, then you know. But I'm the only one who's appalled by this. Everyone else is just like, oh my God, did you see that? Now I ask you, what was the purpose of that butt scene? That it involved a character that is completely inconsequential to the season. In fact, he only appears one more time in the season, and it's a blink of, and you'll miss it kind of moment where he just pops in at the sex party, which was the sex party was another like, oh, look at that, where they're having a lot of sex. Ooh, like there's really no reason that they needed to have that in the plot other than look how cool this is, or for shock value. There's just a lot of stuff in there that has no purpose to the plot other than for shock value or just to be outrageous. And the butt scene, I think, is the worst of all of them. There is no function for it in the story. The character is completely irrelevant. It is there specifically to be an outrageous, shocking scene that people can turn into Beavis and Butthead over and go, did you see that? Oh, that was cool. Like, I don't get it. As I alluded to earlier, the only reason why you would do this is because you don't have a good story to tell. So you're trying to distract people with shock value. And as far as I can tell, it seems to be working. So now I want to get into the story, and more specifically the characters, and how I just think it's all just kind of spinning its wheels. All right, let's get into the story and the characters. So the story, I mean, technically has advanced. Things have changed. Characters have died. Characters have moved on to other things. I mean, very gradually things have changed, but the characters themselves, very few of them have had any character growth at all. And even some of the ones that have had some little bit of character growth are still repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So we've got two sides of this. We have the boys side of things, and we have the seven side of things. And in each case, it is centered around one character. With the seven, it's Homelander. Everything kind of swims around him, focuses on him. He's the leader. He's the center of the seven. And then with the boys, of course, it's Butcher. And those two characters neither of them have shown any growth whatsoever. Each of them kind of shows a little bit of the illusion of growth, but there isn't any real character growth at the end of the day. And then this affects all the other characters of the show, because the characters in the boys continue to follow Butcher, even though he hasn't shown any growth and he hasn't changed. And they always say, well, this is it, we're not, fuck Butcher, we're not following Butcher anymore. And then at the end of each season, all of them rally around Butcher once again, and they're all in the boys together, and they're following his lead once again, and they haven't learned a goddamn thing. Same thing on the side of the seven. With the seven, it was particularly frustrating this season. I'll start with A-Train, because this was the most frustrating character, because this character really seemed like he was having some character growth. When he apologized to Huey, I think he was sincere. I was really enjoying this character's story. But then that is all undone at the end, wherein he just goes right back to the seven again and is following Homelander once again. Even if you want to say, well, no, the A-Train is going to, now he doesn't trust Homelander completely. He's going to undermine him. But they did that same shit with Starlight, where Starlight finally left the seven. I didn't buy this whole oh, well, now she's undercover or whatever. She still had to go along with Homelander's bullshit. Finally, she left. But I have some other issues with her that I'll get to a little bit later when I talk about the boys' side of things. But the characters just keep coming back to Homelander. Maeve did leave. I'll give her that credit. She did leave. But A-Train was particularly frustrating for me. Now let's focus in on Homelander, because this is a character that I have heard getting a lot of praise. from fans of the show. I've heard statements such as this is the strongest character on television. And I listen, I don't want to undermine other people's opinions. Everyone sees things the way they see things. It's just an opinion I have a hard time seeing. I just don't get it. By my eyes, Homelander is an incredibly uninteresting and boring character and very predictable. Like anytime he says something nice to a character, I know immediately that he is then going to say something mean and twisted to them right after that. Sometimes I'm even able to predict like kind of a ballpark of what he's going to say specifically to that person. And I'm bored. I'm bored with it. Like he's too predictable. He hasn't changed one bit. And I feel like they were trying to give us the illusion of character growth by doing this weird Gollum thing randomly where he's looking in the mirror and he has two different sides of himself, and they're trying to show that there's just this little boy who wants attention as part of Homelander. And I feel like that's not really character growth. I think that's something that was probably always there, that they are now showing us more visually, more viscerally, like we can now touch, feel, and see it. This little boy side that he had to him, but he's always had that. So I don't really see that as character growth. I see him as the same character he's been since day one of the show, and he hasn't changed one iota. There's no character growth, and that's not interesting to me. I need to see characters, even my villain characters, especially my villain characters. I need to see them change, grow, something. Is something. I find him to be incredibly uninteresting, and I find it incredibly uninteresting that the other characters in the Seven continue to go back to him. And A-Train was especially frustrating this season. So, yeah, I just don't get it. Now, on the boy side of things, same thing with Butcher. Now, we get kind of the illusion of character growth that he saves Huey by kicking his ass, which is a very Butcher thing to do. If he's going to save somebody, he's going to do it by beating them up. But would that not have been something he would have done in season one? I would argue that it would be. I don't see the character growth. Again, they're trying to create the illusion of character growth by showing that whole thing with his brother. Well, that was always in his character. We're just seeing that for the first time. That isn't growth. That's more of like a revelation, but it's not growth. And at the end of season 3, he is the same guy he's always been. There's no reason to believe that he's going to change one iota in season 4. And which is why one of the many reasons I will not be bothering to watch season 4. And again, it's frustrating that all of the characters keep rallying behind him at the end. Mother's Milk, like, I just don't even want to hear him open his mouth again. I'm so sick of that guy going, Butcher sucks, I fucking hate Butcher, Butcher, Butcher. Oh, and then at the end of it, oh, Butcher, let me follow you again. I'm just shut up. It's like, I'm so sick of that character. I'm done with that character. Now, the most interesting characters to me are Frenchie and Camino. Oh my gosh, what is her name? Kamika. Sorry about that, Kamika. Hey, it's been a few months since I've seen this show. Kamika and Frenchie, I think, are the two characters that have shown the most growth. I think they're the most interesting. I actually enjoyed Kamika's her musical scenes, which I usually don't like musicals in the middle of my more serious shows, but I thought they were fun. And I think she is the most interesting character on the show, quite honestly. But then I become frustrated when the two of them still go back and follow Butcher again. Why? Why? You guys know better than this. Like, you have grown. Those characters have grown and changed since season 1. So why do they keep going back? It's frustrating. Then we have Huey. I'm sorry, but Huey was obnoxious to me this season. I think Jack Quaid should just stick to Boimler. Or at least I will just stick to watching Jack Quaid do Boimler on Star Trek Lower Decks, because that's all I care about him now as Boimler, because Huey drove me nuts. So his whole deal this season was to say to Starlight, I don't like it that you can save me. I want to save you because I'm the man. The men are supposed to save the women, and I'm supposed to be stronger than the women. That was so obnoxious, especially since, as Starlight pointed out, he said last season that he was okay with it, and he's clearly not. And so him taking that serum and getting those powers just because he felt like demasculized, and he was unmanned, and like he has to be the one that saves the woman because he's the big strong man, that was obnoxious. And what was obnoxious about Starlight is that she doesn't kick his ass to the curb immediately, and like she goes back to him again. Like, she's really frustrating character too. Yes, she finally left the Seven, yay, but now you're gonna go and follow Butcher, who is just as bad as Homelander in a lot of ways. So why so those characters are just completely frustrating for me. I just can't watch them anymore. Like, they're just spinning their wheels, they're going right back around, they're not learning anything. Starlight, yeah, she left the Seven, now she's gonna go join the boys. Whoop-de-doo. It's like, it's just so frustrating for me. So I think I can wrap things up now. I think I've expressed my frustration enough. So I'll go ahead and end this with my rating out of 10 for this show that I view as the most overrated show of the year. So my rating out of 10 for The Boys Season 3, with 1 being the lowest possible score and 10 being the highest possible score, is a 5. So it's not the worst, because I do like the political stuff. I do enjoy some things. I do enjoy Kaminka and Frenchie. So that's why it's as high as a 5. It's not like a 1 or a 2 or 3 or anything like that. But I think most people would probably give it a 9 or a 10. It is definitely a very highly regarded. So I have to say that it is the most overrated show of 2022. All right, so next week I'm going to come back and I'm going to be a lot more positive. I'm going to do my most underrated show of the year. It is likely to be a show you probably don't watch, and that's why I find it to be underrated. So please join me for that, and then join me for the week after that, where I will be negative again, ranting and raving about the worst show of the year. And then the week after that, I will be back to the positive with my top 10 of the year. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.